So often people will say, does this person have a voice? Do they have their viewpoint? And it's often the thing that people get hired on, particularly as they develop in a research career, as they become more well known, is that they have a voice that people recognize and that they understand, and people gravitate to them. That's why you actually get hired on different places, because you actually have a voice. People are interested in what you have to say, and they want your guidance in what you have to say. So this is a problem that's very real in the academic arena, but it's very real in the business world as well. This is why authors get hired. This is why CEOs get hired, because they have a say in terms of what their viewpoint actually is on and what they are interested in. So, what does that mean to have a voice? What are we actually talking about? This is a thing where you have some guiding principles that other people recognize in you, and it is distinct from what other people are actually doing. And they could say, if somebody says, well, why don't you think about this? And they would say, well, go talk to this person. They probably know this particular thing. Then you have a voice. You're being recognized for having that particular voice. You have an identity that other people understand what you are about. So I think a big thing for me is both my research on failure and understanding failure and innovation, but also this whole reciprocity project at this point. I think I'm becoming known for having a voice in the reciprocity project to walk people through from 2 a.m, where people say, what is going on in my life, and walking them through to get to the point where they're feeling good about themselves. So, how do you actually get a voice? What does that entail? I think, so the first thing is that it's just struggling. A lot of it is the struggle of getting people to be attracted to you, to understand what you're about, and to show what you are interested in. So this is a challenging thing, because we are often told to focus on the literature, focus on what you already understand in the literature. This is true of research scientists, but I think it's true of all arenas. When you get into the business world, you want to absorb and socialize as much as you possibly can with the existing norms. You want other people, you want to understand that world, right? And you do the same thing as a research scientist, is you go and you look and see what other people have done, and you want to replicate and talk to that particular crowd. Now, the easiest thing to find your voice is to talk about your life. But you don't have to explicitly talk about your life. You can hide it under the guise of what people are actually talking about. And if you see people that do, things like projects like blogging for a long time, or, that they have become known for the scholarship that they're doing, very often it's almost what they're talking about is their life. And they are talking about it in such a way that other people understand that, where you are bringing that audience in and you're getting to understand, you're getting them to follow along with what you're actually saying. So, how do you get this voice? Where does that come from? So the struggle, there is definitely, that's part of it, is getting up and doing the same thing every day to get that voice, to get it so that you can sing, right? It's a practice skill. But I think there's ways that you could do this, right? I think a big thing is having a good mentor that's going to allow you to have that voice. And that's hard to find, somebody that is going to grow and develop you. They just don't exist, right? They're a unicorn. Find a mentor where people are encouraging you and working on developing you as a person, rather than simply saying this is telling you what to do, or just go do this, right? Like, that is more on the micromanagement side, or what's called transactional leadership side. There's very few on the other side that is doing more of the inspiration and getting people to sort of feel that they could do this and grow as a person, right? So mentorship is really important. Another thing, a key thing is thinking about how you can look at the current world in your own view, right? So sometimes what I do is mimic what other people do, and then it comes across as my voice as I'm mimicking them, right? It's kind of like you can hear the mockingbird over there making all these noises. You could hear it, right? So the mockingbird has its own voice, and you would understand what it is, but it gets its voice from other things that it hears. And I want you to think about how you can do that, how you can look at the world, mimic what people are doing, and then put it in your own voice. That is a really easy way to think about it. So what you might do is pick people that you believe that you want to be like, and that you are, enamored with, or that they resonate with your truths, and then mimic what they're actually doing and see if you can mimic what they're doing. I think that this is extremely good practice in any arena where you're looking at a prototype. What's called a prototype or a template, and you're trying to mimic what they're doing. You're trying to understand the nature of what they're doing, and the only way that you could do that is to mimic it. But then at the same time, you come back and then you have your own voice and what it looks like. As you do this, when you begin, the mimicking is going to be very strong, but eventually you start to grow apart from that mimicking, and you develop your thing about what you're talking about. So these three things are critically important. Experience, that repetition, over and over and over again. Every single study, I study learning. That's the biggest predictor, is just repetition and doing, and not just repetition, like 50 times repetition, 1,000 times, 10,000 times of doing the same thing over and over and over again. Then as well, looking for mentorship, but mentorship is very hard to find. You're not going to find a lot of true mentors out there. There's going to be a lot of transactional relationships, and you'll get that sense. And people want to be part of those transactional relationships, well, that's fine. But you're not going to really get that growth that you're expecting from that particular relationship. And then the last thing is thinking about these templates. Thinking about, and where do you discover what these particular templates are, or prototypes? You look around the world and you see things that just deeply resonate with what you're doing and understand what you're doing. And then you go into a real deep dive in terms of mimicking what they're actually trying to do. And you try to replicate that. You try to actually go through and do quote unquote best practices, but the best practice is really on one thing or two things, where you're thinking about what they are doing and thinking about, how do I backwards induct? What does that look like? Ultimately, when you do that, you're going to, as you find your voice, it's not going to look the same anyways, because you're using your experiences. If you talk about yourself and your experiences, but you couch it in a way where you're thinking about the outside world, you often will quickly develop and understand what you are about, because you are thinking about who you are as a person and your experiences, and everything that you experience is unique and different. Nobody else has that experience other than you. So hopefully this helps you out. Finding your voice is a hard thing to do, and it takes time. And I think we're in a perpetual motion of always finding our voices, even when we're 70 or 80, we're still finding our voices. But I just encourage you to try this, to develop and get your voice and see what it looks like for you. All right, take care and have a wonderful day. Bye.